Welcome back to elmagorecaps. Like and subscribe for more amazing recaps.
In this story, we will follow the adventures of a little girl who loves to pet animals in a world filled with dangers, politics, magic, and obviously dragons. What does this new life hold for our little heroine? The adventure begins with God, yes, the Almighty himself, offering the possibility of reincarnation to a 27-year-old woman who dropped dead from overwork. The Creator sends her to a world where humanity is in constant conflict with the local fauna, and it is her task to decide whether humans should be destroyed by divine wrath. He asks her what she desires to help him in this endeavor, and she mentions her love for petting animals, and that she really was anticipating the moment when she could finally stroke her family's cat again. So the Almighty grants her wish, with a special twist. Thus, Nefertina Osfi is born, a little girl with brown hair and black eyes, into an adorable aristocratic family in the kingdom of Gash. Her siblings are named Ralph and Karna, and her dog's name is Dee. She loves playing with him and has a special relationship with all animals. Cerulia, her mother, is a beautiful blonde woman, and her father Dayland is a hardworking man. One day, her mother takes her to work because no one else can look after her. It doesn't take long for Nefertina to get distracted, chasing pigeons, playing with squirrels, and encountering a huge white tiger with green eyes. Unsurprisingly, she quickly befriends the enormous tiger, and even manages to somewhat tame him in seconds. Naturally, she asks to ride on his back, like anyone would, and they begin to stroll through the forest. Their adventure is interrupted by a man on a tree who explains that despite Lars's good behavior, he is still a wild animal. The man takes her off the tiger, which she doesn't like at all. After explaining who she is, he takes her to her father, the Duke Osfi, who thanks the prince for bringing his daughter in safety. This surprises Neema, who thought the young man was just a savage. Yes, Nefertina nickname is Neema. Even if this doesn't make sense, she proceeds to introduce herself formally to the king, impressing him with her demeanor. Soon her mother joins them and scolds her for casually playing with the sky tiger, explaining that he is a sacred beast capable of using divine force, not a cat, and usually bonds only with its master. Neema, however, says she just wanted to pet Lars. Afterwards, they proceed to the Colosseum where her siblings will participate in a school competition. Ralph leads a small army against another boy's army, all made with magic, and after a quick confrontation, Ralph emerges victorious. After congratulating him, Neema asks him to go to the bathroom, and on her way back, they encounter the typical anime extra character trying to belittle her brother. When she confronts him, he gets so angry that almost slaps her, but the prince intervenes, putting the extra in his place. Your Highness insists on carrying Neema into the arena as if she were his little sister, and upon arrival explains that the magical circle on the ground is used for summoning creatures, and Karna is a summoner who uses her body's mana to cast spells. After some special effects, Karna summons a colossal red dragon, a sacred beast like Lars, but much more lethal. This alarms everyone. However, instead of being concerned, both her mother and Karna appear confident, unlike Neema, who is so worried that she jumps over the arena's protective wall and runs toward the massive creature. Seriously, there are 1,000 people in this arena, and no one managed to stop Neema before she positioned herself between the red dragon and the mages. She must be the fastest cute child in the whole kingdom. Neema asks them not to attack the colossal dragon, and after realizing that the creature could communicate telepathically, she requests them not to attack the mages present as well. The dragon mentions that humans often summon beings of his race to fight their battles against their will, and he despises it. However, Neema's cuteness, as she asks to touch his scales, convinces him not to harm the humans this time. Before leaving, the enormous creature leaves a red orb with her, allowing her to communicate with him even at a distance, as well as with other dragons nearby. He assures her that when she grows up, he will recognize her as his master, and asks her to carry the orb wherever she goes. The little girl transforms the orb into a teddy bear and puts it on her back. The colossal dragon introduces himself as Sun and takes flight towards the sky. Afterward, the king makes an emergency summon to understand what happened and asks if Neema made a pact with the dragon. Her father swears that she did not receive the blessing of the red dragon and poses no threat to the kingdom. The king then asks his council what they think happened for a legendary creature to be summoned that day. The first to speak believes it was something supernatural, perhaps divine intervention. The next is a priest that suggests it might be a divine sign that the kingdom is on the right path. But Neema can easily see he is using religion to manipulate the king. Noticing the girl's boredom, the prince suggests she play with Lars. She happily goes and immediately starts to feed the huge tiger pieces of meat directly into its mouth, and then proceeds to play with him like he is a normal cat rather than a sacred beast until she falls asleep in his lap. While she sleeps, the advisors try to convince the king to force her into a formal pact to use her as a weapon against the king's enemies. The priest even insinuates that she may not even be her father's legitimate daughter due to their different eyes color, irritating her both parents. In the end, her father and some allies persuade the king to free her from any obligation to the kingdom, at least for now. When she wakes up, the king assures her she is free to visit the castle whenever she wants, and her parents confirm she isn't in any trouble since she did nothing wrong. Shortly after, one of the commanders of the royal guard arrives to take her to visit the dragon stables at the prince's request. On the way, she envisions how amazing it would be to pet all the dragons in that world. Once there, Neema introduces herself to the captain of the Dragon Knights, who welcomes her and mentions he will soon show her the dragons that live there, but he has to warn her not to touch them, or she might lose her little hands. It becomes apparent that there is friction between Dan Yates and Gwyn Fields, but all Neema can think about is how stupidly cute all the wonderful creatures that live there are. Due to her intense desire to pet them, her orb starts emitting energy, making the leader of the group of dragons come directly to her. He introduces himself as Gizzle and lets the little girl touch his face and fly on him, a moment she can barely contain her excitement about. After they talk a bit in midair, Gizzle takes her to play with the other dragons, who behave like children and readily accept her into their group. They run together, play in the water, and so on. Later, when she returns riding on Lars and followed by various dragons and dinosaurs, the two older mages can hardly believe their eyes. Dan Yates was so impressed that he ended up convincing the captain of the beast stable to let Neema visit the place and meet the creatures that live there. The girl thinks the place is beautiful and feels like she's on a safari. Soon, the leader of the horse herd arrives, an impetuous black horse who initially doesn't seem interested in her. Les explains that this horse is just like that, selfish, but Neema can see that in reality, Yoas behaves this way to ward off intrusive humans and protect his herd, winning Yoa's heart and improving his relationship with Les. The group then starts horseback riding and is soon followed by a group of boars, but Yoa scares them away because he noticed Neema had been scared of them. Soon, they encounter a group of ostrich-like birds, and Les says they are super fast and used by messengers to deliver urgent messages throughout the whole Gash kingdom. Neema obviously wants to ride them, and Les decides to let her do just so to teach her a lesson. Apparently, he was getting jealous of the little girl's close relationship with the various creatures, so he let her run with the wind in her eyes for a while, before stopping it with a spell. Who is the child now? Neema finishes the race dizzy and almost falls to the ground. Leston Agma receives a secret message and has to leave. A white elk has escaped, and everyone is after it. Quickly, Les develops a plan to find the sacred beast, but it doesn't take long for our little heroine to arrive, riding the white elk herself, saying Lars had told her about its escape. This ends Les's unwillingness towards Neema. Later, she visits the city with her sister to celebrate her birthday. Neema buys 3 fried chicken quilts and gives them to her sister, the butler who came with her, and her dog, Dee. Afterward, the girl buys a bunch of candy to share with her mother, brother, and father. How cute is that? Before returning home, her sister is approached by a trio of girls who try to belittle Neema because they say she can't use magic. Karna simply says that the king himself adores Neema and her sister is stupidly talented, shutting up the trio mercilessly. Upon arriving home, a surprise party awaits her with a huge banquet and the presence of the royal family, her own family, and the friends she had made in the past few days. The little girl cries with happiness, recognizing the hard work put into the celebration, and then they begin to eat and socialize. Dan Yates gives her a dragon scale taken from the creature's most sensitive area, The prince gives her a golden bracelet as a gift for protection. Gwyn Fields gives her an encyclopedia of the kingdom's animals. The royal family gives her a necklace with magical stones that activates if she says, "Help, Uncle Galdi!" Her father's friend gives her a little sword, while her mother gives her clothes that will grow with her. But let's not forget Nox, the little bird that Leston Nagma gave Neema, and that she just loves. All in all, not a bad day for our mini-heroine. After her extravagant birthday celebration, Neema's parents decided it was time for her to start studying etiquette with Annalie, the best tutor in the kingdom that had previously taught Ralph and Karna. However, right from the start, Neema had a bad feeling about this lady who immediately insisted that the little girl needed to change her childish way of speaking. Annalie taught in an old-fashioned manner, and every time Neema made even the slightest mistake, she would physically punish her with a stick and proceed to say that a true lady was fully capable of controlling her emotions. Remember the priest? She had studied her whole life in his same church before becoming a tutor. In her room, Neema considered her options. She could have told her father about how Annalie was mistreating her, and he would have immediately sent her away. But instead, she decided to confront the old witch in a different way. The next time Annalie struck her, Neema offered her the best corporate smile she could muster. But it soon became clear that this alone wouldn't be enough to defeat her. After dinner, everyone noticed that the little girl had been behaving strangely lately, and her mother went to talk to her. Neema expressed her reluctance to have adults interfere, but Cerelia explained that in order to defeat Annalie, who was considered a perfect lady, Neema had to first understand her rival and learn everything she could from her to be taken seriously. Good manners alone wouldn't be enough. Her brother used his healing magic on Neema, relieving her pain, and after a year of lessons with Annalie, Neema seemed to master the art of etiquette like no other. And interestingly, something curious began to happen. For some reason, although Annalie appeared to behave just like before, she didn't seem a perfect lady for Neema anymore. There was something strange about her, and it didn't take long for Neema to discover what it was: racism. Deep down, her tutor was an elitist who claimed she would never stoop so low as to even speak to the beastmen folk. After an argument with Neema about why a nearby region was suffering from drought, while the church did nothing, Annalie struck the girl again, this time out of anger rather than to teach her anything. Undeterred, Neema stated that she had no desire to become vulgar like Annalie and that it was her obligation to represent the Osfi family as best as possible. Her tutor abandoned the lesson in a mix of shame and anger after Neema's words, and that's when Neema knew she had won. Dayland Osfi obviously noticed the mark on his daughter's face, and only refrained from firing Annalie at Neema's request. However, the etiquette lessons practically came to an end, and the little girl began to learn other things like embroidery and music. Realizing he hadn't spent much time with his daughter, he decided to take her on a trip to the north with him. The security of the lands there was the responsibility of the Osfi family, and lately, monsters had been causing problems for the locals. On the way, they played in the snow and had some quality time together. In the carriage, her father explained that Arcenta's economy was based on the trade of wood, milk, and other cold-resistant cereals. Neema loved the wild boar stew they ate at the inn so much that she ate again. Her father asked her to ask Sun, the red dragon, if he knew why the monsters were coming to the northern forests, when they usually lived further south. Sun said he hadn't heard of any monster migrations in that region lately. So it was decided that the group would explore the area the next day to better understand what was actually happening. Bright and early the next morning, the little girl was ready to go out with her magical rabbit backpack, protective necklace, and mini sword. Nox was also awake, tasked with watching the area and alerting her to possible threats. When a frightened little thing ran from Neema's group, almost killed by one of its members' swords, she decided to go after it alone. When she had the creature in her arms, they were both kidnapped by a group of goblins. Initially, their reddish eyes in the darkness of the cave frightened Neema a lot, but the creatures strangely didn't show themselves to be violent, and simply took her to a place with some other children. Meanwhile, her father was starting to understand what had happened. It didn't take long for Neema to discover that besides the three of them, there were also some adults who had been kidnapped by the goblins. Sun couldn't help them because Neema couldn't control his fire magic properly, and might end up hurting the others if she used a fireball to defeat the goblins. After a while the kids started to feel hungry, and since the goblins hadn't locked them up, Neema decided to go out in search of food. After the initial scare of encountering this little creature, she explained that she wanted to eat something, and the goblin decided to give her a sweet orange fruit that Neema loved. When she said she needed more to take to her friends, the goblin just gave her more fruits without a thought. Seeing him peeling the fruits with his fingers, she decided to show him a better way to peel them, impressing the green skins. That's when their chief arrived and asked why they had kidnapped even more children. This big goblin was a hobgoblin and could speak the human language. Neema, as straightforward as ever, asked why the goblins had kidnapped her, and the boss explained that it was in their nature. They liked taking care of children, even if they were human. And when she asked why they attacked humans, the hobgoblins simply said they did it to survive and that the only reason they had left their native forest was because humans hunted them, killing everyone mercilessly. Not only the goblins but also several other creatures until they arrived in this region. In fact, what they wanted was their old life back and to live in the forest peacefully. Hearing this and remembering the mission given to her by God, the little girl devised a plan to help the creatures find a better place to live. For this, she asked the help of Nino and Pino, who despite initially being reluctant, decided to help her. Acting as bait, the two ran through the forest asking for help, and as predicted by Neema, her father decided to rescue the other children too. Using Sun's magic, she ordered the goblins to return to the cave, and when her father's group was about to enter, the impetuous hobgoblin came out and said he would return the kidnapped humans if they left them alone. When her father's attack was blocked by Sun's magic, he asked the little girl to come out and explain herself. When she apologized and joined him, his group attacked the hobgoblin again, and once more, Sun's magic saved him. This goblin had never been so lucky in his life because after all that, Neema, repeating what she had done with Sun, positioned herself between the humans and the supposed monster. Once she finally was able to explain the situation to her father, and he understood better what was happening, promising not to attack the goblins anymore. Nox warned them that an imminent danger was approaching from the forest. Now their group would have to deal with an enormous ice spider. Being the world's savior wasn't always rainbows and sunshines, Neema was realizing. It didn't take long for the courageous hobgoblin to bravely confront the creature, initiating a bloody battle. Interestingly, Neema had a strong sense that the ice spider was not just dangerous, but desperate and very hungry, despite ultimately being defeated by the goblin. Before passing away, she asked Neema to take care of her daughter, a tiny spider that the girl immediately took a liking to. This was the reason the monster decided to attack Neema's group, the desperation of a mother to feed her offspring. Although Neema understood the harsh reality of life, she was unsatisfied with how things operated and prayed to God for a life of peace for the monster and its next incarnation, if possible. She promised herself to become stronger to protect all creatures in the world as best as she could. It was then that a light struck the hobgoblin, evolving it into a humanoid being with 2 small horns. Since no one understood what had happened, she decided to ask Sun if he knew what the hobgoblin's evolution was. The legendary red dragon replied that there was no evolution for the hobgoblin because it was already the evolution of the goblin itself. He concluded by saying that he would visit them the next day to see this creature up close. The girl thanked the evolved hobgoblin for saving them from the spider, while her father told her to stay away from him. Neema then asked the little black spider if she wanted to go with them or stay in the forest where her mother lived. When she decided to go with Neema, the girl named her Grazia, unintentionally causing a magical effect on the creature's forehead. The next morning, while the goblins collected various parts of the ice spider, the hobgoblin, keeping his promise, said he would release all the captured humans because they only hindered their plan. Then Nino and Pino came to talk to Neema, and after unsuccessfully fixing Pino's hair, they decided to go have breakfast. One of the group members brought the little rabbit she had saved the other day. But after talking to her father, she decided to leave the creature in the forest. As for the little black spider, her father ordered her to get rid of that monster as quickly as possible. The hobgoblin said that a monster was a defective mutation of its normal version. Goblins were defective humans, and ice spiders were defective spiders. Usually, monsters are weak unless someone powerful gives them a name, and her father concluded that a black monster was a sign that it was even rarer. When the goblin noticed that the spider already had a name, Neema said yes, she was called Grazia, quickly telling her father that she named her unintentionally, and so he let her keep the spider because it would be very dangerous to release such a creature back into the forest. After that, the group headed towards the city, and the siblings said they were the sons of Count Irega, inviting Neema to play with them whenever she wanted. Our little heroine, who thought Pinot didn't like her, said she would go while hugging her. Sun arrived and after analyzing the creature concluded that the hobgoblin was like nothing he had ever seen. But Neema didn't hear him at all, because she was focused on how smooth his scales were. Noticing he was being ignored, the legendary dragon caught her attention with a bit more energy, while the goblin held her in his arms, much to her father's displeasure. Sun said that this being was not even an Oni, as he could see spirits. After the legendary dragon explained what to do, the goblin showed that he could use all elemental powers and demonstrated it using them, one by one. Thus, after it became evident that this was a new species, Neema said she would name it Shinki, which meant something like spirit of the forest. But once again unintentionally, she named a creature, so Shinki thanked her, saying that he would ask to be named by her anyway, making Sun a bit jealous of her new ally. While her father simply put his hand to his head. If she kept naming every creature she encountered, soon the world would be filled with super powerful monsters.